Welcome to the TExES 391 Core Subjects EC6 Online Test Prep course, covering subject exam number 1, English Language Arts and Reading. This is test number 901, and the course is presented by Teacher Preps, your trusted source to help you pass your teacher certification exam. Thanks so much for being here. Let's get started. Competency 4 is all about reading comprehension. There are a total of 12 descriptive statements within this competency, so there's a lot to dig into with this lesson. Competency 4 reads as reading comprehension and applications. The teacher understands the importance of reading for understanding, knows the components and processes of reading comprehension, and teaches strategies for improving their comprehension, including using a variety of texts and contexts. Notice here the highlighted keywords. Understands the importance of reading for understanding. Knows the components and processes of reading comprehension. And teaches students strategies for improving their comprehension. The first lesson that we'll cover will teach you everything you need to know about the first standard, which states the beginning teacher understands factors affecting reading comprehension. For example, word analysis skills, prior knowledge, language background experience, previous reading experiences, vocabulary, fluency, ability to monitor understanding, characteristics of specific texts, all for students in grades 4 through 6. Let's start first with what's comprehension. Try and create a sentence on your own, in your own words. What does comprehension mean? And if you want to be specific, we're talking about reading comprehension. All right, did you come up with a solution? Remember that comprehension is when you understand or when you comprehend. In our case, reading comprehension is when you understand that which you read. All right, we're off to a good start. Let's keep going. First part about comprehension that we need to know for our exam, it's all about factors affecting reading comprehension. So grab your notebook and let's start by writing factors affecting reading comprehension right at the top of your paper. Remember the Texas Education Agency listed factors, so we need to know all of these. Write these down as well. Normally, I like to make diagrams, charts, graphs, but there are so many, we're going to make a list here. And yes, take a deep breath because this is going to take a while, but this test is important. So let's make sure you're 100% prepared to pass. All right, the first factor that affects reading comprehension is a student's word analysis skill level. First, do you remember what word analysis is? Pause the video and try to write down your own definition. Right. Recall that having the skill in word analysis is having the ability to identify and understand the structure of individual words. This includes recognizing a word's prefix, suffix, and root word. Can you think of an example word that has all three, a prefix, a suffix, and a root? I'll wait. As a matter of fact, let's use a timer to see how many words you can write down that have all three. Let's put up for 10 seconds. All right, how many did you come up with? Now, here's one example. Unhappiness. Can you identify the prefix, suffix, and root? Now, a bit of a sad word, sorry about that, but hey, it's a good example for our case here. So, first of all, un is the prefix. It means not. Happy is the root word, of course. We change the Y to an I. Nevertheless, meaning stays the same. And then we have the suffix ness. Apologies for crossing the arrows right there. Perhaps we can pause here and you can say in your own words how having the ability to use word analysis skills would help you build or strengthen a student's reading comprehension. One way I like to put it is that having strong word analysis skills is the foundation for decoding and understanding unfamiliar words. Another way is mastery in recognizing prefixes, suffixes, and root words, as well as applying phonics rules, allows students to break apart and interpret complex texts in greater ease. All right, so on to number 2, prior knowledge. Let's start with a little background information. Students draw from their pre existing knowledge when reading a text, allowing them to make connections, predictions, and inferences. Let's learn and realize this through an example. There are two students in a classroom, Bob and Billy. Today's science lesson is all about the water cycle. Billy happened to pick up and read a book at the library that had a chapter about the water cycle in it. Bob has never heard these two words put together before. See how prior knowledge will affect the comprehension of our students? When students can relate textual information to what they already know, they are better equipped to make connections, to predict outcomes, and to understand the context of what they're reading. Topic number 3 is language background and experience. For your exam, remember that the cultural, linguistic, and social background of a student can influence their comprehension. Furthermore, students whose English is a second language might face challenges due to linguistic challenges. For example, Maylee just arrived from Singapore. She's completely fluent in English, but this is her first time in the United States. It's Thanksgiving week, and she's never heard of this American holiday called Thanksgiving. In order to boost Maylee's ability to comprehend the Thanksgiving Day story that the class will read later today, her teacher should provide her with some important background information about the holiday before starting the story. So, how might we wrap up the notion that a student's linguistic and personal background and experience might positively or negatively affect a student's reading comprehension? Well, it can be said that students with limited exposure to the predominant language of instruction or unfamiliar cultural contexts might face challenges in decoding words, understanding idioms, or grasping culture nuances, thereby affecting their overall comprehension. Let's now move on to topic number 4 of factors that affect reading comprehension, which is previous reading experiences. Let's start with some background information. Previous exposure to diverse reading materials can widen vocabulary, boost comprehension, and enhance understanding of text structures. This factor is very similar to the example given before, how Billy already read about the water cycle, so her previous reading experience will positively affect her comprehension when she reads a new book about the water cycle in class. Note also that positive past encounters with reading can boost a student's confidence, motivation, and ability to make connections between texts, foster deeper comprehension that way too. And this is why we as teachers want to do our best to introduce books and information with excitement. On the flip side, it's important to note that students without prior reading experience about a particular topic might react to a new topic by being shy or scared, timid, nervous, or even angry. So, as teachers, it's important that we really use our smart strategies to ease the students into new topics through questions, eliciting their curiosities, wonders, and trying to find students ways to connect to that which they're going to be learning in the classroom with their personal lives. All right, next up, number 5 on the list is fluency, which we will be discussing next, and this will definitely affect a student's reading comprehension. All right, let's recall that fluency encompasses these 3 components. Do you remember them? Accuracy, rate, and prosody, otherwise known as expression. So, why is fluency so important to comprehension? Well, it's because fluency is tied to reading comprehension. When students read fluently, they can focus more on the understanding of the content rather than decoding individual words, allowing for smoother transitions, from sentence to sentence and better retention of the information that they're reading. Conversely, a lack of fluency can disrupt the flow of reading, leading to students to lose track of where they're reading, the main idea, the context, and it can overall just affect negatively their comprehension of the text. Number 6 on the list is vocabulary, which also has a major impact on a student's ability to comprehend that which they're reading. A robust vocabulary is fundamental for comprehension. It's not just about knowing words, but about understanding their context and meaning. For your exam, you'll want to know that vocabulary development influences reading comprehension for students in grades 4 through 6 because as students expand their vocabulary, they can more easily decode and understand texts, leading to better comprehension. Here we go. The seventh factor in affecting reading comprehension is the ability of the reader or student to monitor their own understanding. Teachers need to know how to teach students to recognize when they do not understand a portion of the text and employ strategies to clarify their own comprehension. The ability to monitor understanding is a key self regulation skill for students in grades 4 through 6. When students actively check their comprehension while reading, they can identify areas of confusion and seek clarification, thus enhancing their overall grasp of the text that they're reading. All right, now we've covered descriptive statement number 1 inside competency number 4. Let's get you fully prepped for the second descriptive statement, which states standard number 2. The beginning teacher understands levels of reading comprehension and knows how to monitor and teach skills for literal comprehension, such as identifying stated main idea, recalling details, identifying a point of view, inferential comprehension, such as inferring themes, making predictions, and then also evaluative comprehension, like analyzing character development, detecting faulty reasoning. Now, all of this is for students in grades 4, 5, and 6. Wow, that's a big standard that we need to learn. Now, let's simplify this standard. Here we go. I've just rewritten standard number 2. The beginning teacher understands how to effectively teach the 3 levels of reading comprehension, which are literal comprehension, inferential comprehension, and evaluative comprehension. Reading comprehension is not monolithic. It manifests in different levels, each of which equips students with unique skills and a broader understanding of the texts that they're reading. The levels that you're going to want to know for your exam are literal comprehension. This is the foundational level of comprehension. Here, students learn to grasp explicitly stated information that comes directly from the book. For example, while reading a short story, a teacher can ask questions like, who are the main characters? What happened at the beginning of the story? In order to gauge students' literal comprehension. Next, for your exam, you're also going to have to know instructional strategies to teach literal comprehension. First, there's a strategy called question-answer relationships. This strategy divides comprehension questions into 2 main categories. First is called right there. The answers to these questions are easily found in the text, typically within a single identifiable sentence. And the second type of question is called think and search. The answers to these questions are found in the text, but requires connecting information from different sections. The second literal comprehension checking instructional strategy to know are story retellings. This method involves students recalling and describing a text that they've read. This can be such as unaided retelling, also known as free retelling, where students retell the story without any guidance, or aided retelling, where if a student misses a major point during the unaided retelling, the teacher can probe by asking specific questions related to that component. Next, let's move on to inferential comprehension, which goes beyond the literal interpretation of a text. Instead of merely understanding the direct information provided, Readers are expected to draw on their personal experiences and knowledge, combining it with the textual information that they read in order to make a deeper understanding, deeper connection, and deeper inferences with the book. This type of comprehension is like putting puzzle pieces together, where some pieces are from the text and others are from the reader's own experience or background knowledge. Key concepts of inferential comprehension is we say it's in your head. Unlike literal comprehension, where the answers are in the book, inferential comprehension requires readers to rely on their personal insights. Next, let's cover the skills involved so you can catch an inferential comprehension checking question on your exam. If you see the following skills, you want to be looking for an inferential checking answer. These skills include inferring unstated main ideas, making valid comparisons based on text, identifying implicit cause and effect relationships, drawing logical conclusions, making broad generalizations, making predictions rooted in textual evidence, or deciphering themes that aren't explicitly mentioned. Your exam will ask you to match a student need or reading outcome with the correct type of reading comprehension. Here are instructional strategies that can be matched with inferential comprehension. Note that inferential and evaluative comprehension, which we'll cover next, have overlapping strategies. Give your students the evidence. So you might ask, what's the evidence? Discussions here might be discussion questions. Whenever a student makes an inference about a text, ask them to provide evidence or reasons for their conclusions. This not only solidifies their understanding, but also hones in on their argumentative skills. Another strategy you can use to check students' inferential comprehension is called predictive reading. Before reading a story or chapter in a book, ask students to make predictions about what they think might happen based on the title or introductory paragraph or other chapters that they've already read. Now, as they read, they can validate or adjust their predictions. Then we have scenario-based questions, and this is when a teacher gives students hypothetical scenarios related to the story's theme or characters and have them infer likely outcomes or character reactions. Next is illustration inferences, where we can use illustrations, if available, to help students infer the mood, setting, or themes of the story. Moving on to our third form of reading comprehension, and the most challenging is evaluative comprehension, which entails assessing, judging, or critiquing elements of a text. So instead of just understanding or inferring, students will analyze and assess the content that they read. Like inferential comprehension, answers to evaluative comprehension checking questions are also in the reader's or in the student's head, or are derived from personal judgments and are not directly mentioned in the text. Skills involved with answering evaluative comprehension checking questions include recognizing and understanding bias, identifying unsupportive assumptions, propaganda, or faulty reasoning, and differentiating between facts and opinions, also judging a text, character, content, and language use, and then also analyzing themes to determine if they're logical or if they make sense. Furthermore, teaching and modeling strategies that you'll want to know for your exam could be bias detection by using texts with clear biases and have students identify them. We can ask the student why the author might have this bias and how it might affect the text or the characters inside the text. Next, we have fact versus opinion. Provide sentences to our students and ask the students to label them as either fact or opinion. Gradually move to more complex texts. Also, there are character judgments. After reading a story, discuss a character's decision. Did they do the right thing? Why or why not? This can be done in debates or with written reflections. And finally, there is theme analysis. Discuss the central theme or message of a story. Ask if it makes sense or if they agree with what they read. Here we go, moving to descriptive statement number 3. Within competency 4, this one reads, provides instruction in comprehension skills that support the transition of students in grades 4 through 6 from learning to read to reading to learn. For example, setting a purpose for reading, applying knowledge of text structures, using text features such as pronunciation guides, instructions, and sidebars to become self-directed critical readers. Let's begin with the transition from learning to read to reading to learn. The journey from learning the mechanics of reading, which is decoding words, to fully understanding and analyzing text is a significant milestone in a child's academic career. Now, let's refresh our memory about the stages of reading that a child typically goes through from learning to read to reading to learn, so that you're totally prepped for this exam. First, we have emergent literacy. This is birth to preschool. Students at this level have print motivation by showing interest in the books that they're reading. Then comes early alphabetic phase, which is preschool to kindergarten, where children begin recognizing and producing rhymes. Next is later alphabetic phase. This is kindergarten through first grade, where the child begins recognizing common irregular words by sight like the and was. In the next stage, this is called orthographic phase. This is from first grade to second grade. Students' vocabulary is rapidly expanding, and they can often recognize common spelling patterns and chunks in words like "ite," such as in night. The fifth phase is called the transitional phase. This is second grade to third grade, where deeper comprehension and students can use more complex text structures. Then finally, the last phase is called reading to learn phase, and this happens from fourth grade and beyond. Now that we have a refresher of a reading timeline, let's move back into our standard for the exam and discuss instructional strategies you'll want to be aware of regarding supporting the transition of students in grades 4 through 6 from learning to read to reading to learn. Keep in mind these following strategies. First, set a purpose. For whatever they're reading, help them set a purpose, which is a proactive approach where readers set clear objectives or questions they wish to answer through the text. This might be as simple as reading to find a character's motive, or as intricate as understanding an author's stance on a complex issue. Next strategy we have is teaching common text structures, including cause and effect, problem and solution, or sequence or chronology. Understanding these structures can significantly enhance a student's comprehension, especially as they transition to reading to learn. Moving on, let's discuss cultivating self-directed critical readers. Remember, critical reading goes beyond comprehension. It's all about analyzing, synthesizing, evaluating, and applying knowledge. Self-directed readers not only understand what they read, but they question it. They relate it to their own personal lives in order to interpret it and understand it better. Right then, moving straight into our fourth descriptive statement inside competency number 4, this one reads, the beginning teacher uses various instructional strategies to enhance reading comprehension. For example, linking text content to students' lives and prior knowledge, connecting related ideas across different texts, comparing different versions of the same story, explaining the meaning of common idioms and adages, engaging students in guided and independent reading, guiding students to generate questions and apply knowledge of text topics for students in grades 4 through 6. The key word here is instructional strategies. Now, let's talk about different ways you'll want to know for your exam to strengthen and enhance our students' reading comprehension skills. The first way, we can help our students find links to the text content that they're reading to their personal lives and their prior knowledge. This is important for comprehension and retention as it creates a meaningful connection between the learning material and the learner, making abstract concepts more concrete and relatable. A few popular ways to do this include using a KWL chart, personal journals, visual aids, or group discussions. The next strategy is connecting related ideas all across different texts. And this is the ability to identify themes, characters, or events that are similar in different stories or texts. We can also compare different versions of the same story. Explaining the meaning of common idioms and adages is our next instructional strategy to enhance our students' reading comprehension, and this is when a teacher and students might explore idioms like butterflies in the stomach and discuss their literal and figurative meanings. Next, we have engaging students in guided and independent reading. This is where a teacher might start a class reading a chapter together, which would be called guided, and then allow the students to continue reading on their own or in small groups, and that is independent. And the last instructional strategy that we'll cover in this section is called guiding students to generate questions and apply knowledge. We do this as teachers to encourage students to be inquisitive and to make connections. A classroom example of this could look like after reading a chapter, the teacher facilitates a session where students come up with questions about what might happen next or how it might relate to previous chapters. Great. Moving right along to descriptive statement number 5, which reads, the beginning teacher knows and teaches strategies that facilitate comprehension of different types of texts, such as literary, informational, or argumentative, before, during, and after reading, such as previewing, making predictions, questioning, self monitoring, rereading, mapping, using reading journals, discussing texts. And again, all for students in grades 4, 5, and 6. So there are a couple of key concepts here. First, we need to learn how to teach comprehension enhancing strategies to our students for a variety of types of books. And second, the reading strategies we teach our students need to work during different parts of reading, such as before reading, during reading, and after reading. Now, let's dive into this section so you are 100% prepared for test day. Let's start with a quick refresher of the different text types. Let's begin with literary texts. These are often characterized by a narrative structure. These texts tell a story and may include elements like characters, settings, plot, conflict, and resolution. Next, we have informational texts. These texts provide factual information about the world around us. They can include textbooks, news articles, and biographies. Finally, we have argumentative texts, and these are aimed at persuading the reader. These texts will present a claim and provide evidence to back it up. Now, let's discuss how to teach our students strategies that facilitate comprehension of these different text types. These strategies will work for all 3 text types, which are great for remembering these on your exam. Before reading strategies include previewing, where students skim through headings, subheadings, and look at illustrations to get a gist of what they think the content might be. Also, there is making predictions. Based on the title or headings, what do students think that the text is going to be about? Next, let's discuss during reading strategies. Here, the teacher can teach the students questioning, such as pausing at a place in the story and asking, what do I understand? What's the main idea? Or why did that author say that? Then there's also the strategy called self-monitoring. This is when you check in with yourself. If something doesn't make sense, we teach the student to reread it. And one more to cater to our visual learners, there is also mapping. This is where we can create a visual representation of the information using a mind map. Now it's time to discuss reading strategies for after reading. This can include rereading. This is when you go back to areas that felt challenging to ensure that you totally understand them. Next is using reading journals where students reflect on what they've read, noting down summaries, questions, and insights. And lastly, we have discussing texts. Here, this is when we talk about the text with a partner, a peer, a friend, which can help reveal new perspectives when you talk with another person about it. Moving straight into our sixth descriptive statement, incompetency 4, this one reads, knows and teaches strategies that facilitate making connections between and across multiple texts, such as summarizing and paraphrasing, locating and distinguishing between facts and opinions, determining whether a text supports or opposes an issue. Once again, this is all for students in grades 4 through 6. Here we have making connection leads to comprehending what you read. And that's the focus of this lesson. So let's get started. Recall that summarizing involves condensing the main ideas of a text into a brief overview. Now, you might be thinking, what's an effective way to teach it? So let's dive into that right now. First, start by modeling how to summarize a text. Read a shorter text aloud. Demonstrate creating a summary with main points, characters, and events. Your children will love to see you do it. Then allow for a chance to practice summarizing. Provide varied text for practice. Emphasize peer review for collaboration and also refining, getting better at it. To create a fun classroom activity, organize a summary jigsaw activity. This one's really fun. This is when you divide students into groups. Each group summarizes and presents. Class identifies cross-text connections that they see that they can find from the text that they've previously read or experiences from their own lives. Complete the activity with a review and reflection session in order to reflect on the activity's benefits. Also, emphasize the value of summary for comprehension and critical thinking. All right, great. Now let's move on to paraphrasing, which is rewording a specific passage from the text without changing its original meaning. In order to teach our students this skill, we can start with a read aloud and then demonstrate how to rewrite what we just read in our own words. Show the students your use of synonyms, changing of sentence structure, and ensure the original meaning stays intact. Next, give the students a chance to practice paraphrasing by providing the students with individual sentences, then progressing to paragraphs. Also, utilize peer review, where students share and compare their paraphrased reversions. Then, like teaching summarizing, the activity here can be another jigsaw activity. In this case, you'd want to divide students into groups, assign different texts. Each group paraphrases sections, and then they share it in large group class. The class connects the themes based on the paraphrased content. And once again, end with reflection and benefits by discussing the power of paraphrasing for deeper comprehension. And don't forget to highlight its value in drawing connections. Now, let's move on to the next section. This is teaching our students how to locate facts versus opinions. In order to teach the difference between a fact and opinion, use visual aids. Use contrasting colors for facts like blue and opinions such as orange. Next, model the thought processes to determine whether a statement is a fact or an opinion. Then, create a group activity. Provide students with a list of statements. Students categorize each as a fact or an opinion. Together discuss answers as a class, clarifying misunderstandings. And then let's move along to our final topic. And this is a new standard called determining textual stance on an issue. Some text may present a clear stance on an issue, either supporting or opposing, while others might provide a balanced view. Recognizing a text's stance aids in deeper comprehension and critical analysis. Facilitate the opportunity for students to practice determining textual stances on issues by reading two articles on the same topic, such as climate change, and organize the students to discuss or write about each article's stance on the urgency of addressing global warming. Here we are at the seventh descriptive statement in competency 4, which reads, the beginning teacher understands metacognitive skills, including self evaluation and self monitoring skills, and teaches students to use those skills to enhance their reading comprehension in grades 4 through 6. This tells me that the key in this standard is how to teach metacognitive skills to our students. It may have been some time, so let's start with a definition. Metacognitive skills in reading comprehension refer to an individual's awareness and control over their own cognitive processes. In the context of reading, it's all about thinking about one's own thinking as they engage with the text. An example could be when a student is reading a novel and they don't quite understand a section. Instead of continuing, they understand to pause and think about what this might mean. Perhaps they need to go back and reread. Maybe they missed a key piece of information, or perhaps they need to adjust their reading strategy. Now, within metacognition, there are two skills we need to discuss next: self evaluation and self monitoring. Self evaluation involves assessing one's own comprehension after reading. And self monitoring is an ongoing process during reading. A student actively checks their understanding while reading, looking out for confusion, and making adjustments as necessary. Next, teaching strategies for metacognitive skills for our students in grades 4, 5, and 6. First, bring students awareness of their own thinking. This can be done through discussions, prompting questions, or reading journals where students document their own thoughts, their feelings, and their responses to what they read. Also, provide explicit instruction on self monitoring techniques for our students. Teachers here can give students a checklist of questions to ask themselves while reading, such as, do I understand this section? Or what is the main idea of this paragraph? Next, encourage reflective practices. After reading, students can engage in activities that promote reflection, such as summarizing, questioning, or discussing the text. Right on to our next descriptive statement from competency number 4. This reads, the beginning teacher knows how to provide students in grades 4 through 6 with systematic explicit instruction and reinforcing activities to promote the use of strategies to provide their reading comprehension, such as previewing, self-monitoring, visualizing, and summarizing. Now, keywords in this statement include systematic, explicit instruction to improve students' reading comprehension. Without further ado, let's jump into this lesson. Let's begin with the importance of systematic and explicit instruction. Recall that systematic instruction refers to a structured, sequenced approach, ensuring that these skills are introduced in a logical progression. Explicit instruction involves clear, direct teaching where concepts are explained unambiguously. Start with previewing. Familiarize students with the content before reading to enhance comprehension by showing students a book cover or a title and also help them make predictions. Great. Now let's move on to self-monitoring to help students become aware of their understanding and recognize any parts of the story that may feel confusing to them. Next, teach students to visualize by creating mental images to deepen their understanding. And encourage summarizing to condense information to grasp the main ideas and most important details. Engage the students with reinforcing activity called the 3-2-1 strategy. After reading, students write down 3 things they learned, 2 interesting facts, and 1 question they still have. Right into our 9th descriptive statement. For competency number 4, this reads: the beginning teacher selects and uses instructional strategies, materials, and activities to guide students' understanding of their own culture and cultures of others through reading in grades 4, 5, and 6. Building from the last standard, added keywords here include materials and culture. Let's dive into this topic now. All right, let's start with the significance of cultural understanding in reading. Reading, remember, it's not just about decoding words. It's an exercise in empathy, in understanding, and in cultural awareness. For example, when a student reads a story set in Japan, they're not only engaging with the plot, but they're also learning about Japanese traditions, values, and norms. In order to teach this, we'll use instructional strategies for enhancing cultural awareness. First, we have thematic units. Here, we want to introduce themes like festivals around the world or heroes from different cultures. This enables students to explore various cultures through multiple readings. And second, we have comparative analysis, where we will have students read 2 stories from different cultural backgrounds and compare their elements, values, and lessons. Now, in order for the students to learn effectively, the teacher must select the appropriate materials. So, let's go over how to do this now. Selecting appropriate materials, the first we call diverse authorship. Choose books written by authors from varied backgrounds. Second, we have inclusive themes and characters. Texts should not only be about diverse cultures, but should also represent diverse characters in varied roles. This aids in breaking stereotypes. And then next, we need to provide our students with engaging activities. Activities to connect reading and culture. Cultural journals. Post reading, students jot down their thoughts on how the story's culture compares to their own. Now, as far as the role of the teacher, it's essential to create a safe environment where students feel comfortable sharing and discussing cultural differences. This involves acknowledging biases, facilitating respectful dialogue, and being open to learning about all the students in the classroom. Now, on the exam, the emphasis on creating an inclusive, respectful classroom and environment where cultures are celebrated is not to be overstated. This is very important for your exam. All right, now moving straight down the list, we are at the 10th descriptive statement of competency 4, which reads: the beginning teacher understands and teaches the features of various literary genres, including folktales, fables, legends, myths, realistic fiction, historical fiction, tall tales, drama, and poetry, and promotes the development of literary response and analysis skills by providing multiple opportunities for students in grades 4 through 6 to listen to and respond to literature and to interact with others about literature. Let's jump straight into this lesson. And we'll begin with a refresher to make sure that you recall the different literary genres so that you're totally prepared for exam day. Starting with folktales, these are traditional stories passed down orally, often teaching a lesson or explaining natural phenomena. Classroom example here is reading The Tortoise and the Hare and discussing the moral and the lesson of patience and persistence. Next, we have fables. These are short stories, usually featuring animals that convey a moral lesson. Classroom activity or example could be exploring remember that story, The Ant and the Grasshopper, in order to emphasize the importance of hard work. Next, we have legends. These are stories rooted in historical facts, but may contain fictional elements. They often celebrate heroic figures or significant events. And next, we have myths. These are traditional tales that explain natural or social phenomena, often involving gods or goddesses or supernatural beings. And then here we have realistic fiction. This is a fictional story that could happen in real life and often addresses contemporary issues or uses personal experiences. Next, we have historical fiction, which is fiction set in the past containing historically accurate details but fictional plots or characters. Now we have tall tales, and these are exaggerated, often humorous stories that describe unbelievable events. And then we have drama. These are texts written for performance, often containing dialogue and stage directions. Next, we have poetry. These are verses written to convey strong imagery or emotion, often with a specific rhythm or structure. Moving to our next topic, promoting literary response and analysis skills. In this section, you'll learn how to provide multiple opportunities for students in grades 4 through 6 to listen to and respond to literature and to interact with others about literature. Starting with read alouds, teachers can expose students to a range of genres, authors, and cultures, modeling fluency and expression. To implement this, choose diverse books that might be slightly above their independent reading level. Read with enthusiasm, changing your voice for the different characters, and pause occasionally to ask open ended questions. Our next strategy is to use literature circles, where teachers can encourage students to discuss a chosen book in a small group, promoting critical thinking and collaborative thinking. Implementation here, we want to divide students into groups and assign or let them choose a book, assign roles, discussion leader, summarizer, vocabulary enricher, for example, and then set regular meeting times for groups to discuss the reading. Keep these tips for effective implementation when taking your exam. Diverse selections. Always strive for a variety of genres, authors, and cultural perspectives. Always keep things safe. Have a safe environment. Make sure that students feel comfortable sharing their thoughts without fear of any ridicule. Next, practice active listening. Teach students to listen respectfully to their peers, fostering a richer discussion. And then guidance and autonomy. While it's important to guide discussions, make sure to also allow students the autonomy to lead and explore topics that they're passionate about. Provide regular reflection. Take time to reflect on what strategies are working and which might need adjustment. In our next section, we'll cover the 11th descriptive statement in competency number 4, which reads, "The beginning teacher knows the difference between guided and independent practice in reading and provides students in grades 4 through 6 with frequent opportunities for both." Let's begin with an overview about guided practice in reading, which involves direct support and scaffolding by the teacher. It's a strategic method of teaching reading skills where the educator provides guidance, feedback, and correction as students navigate through a text. Next, we'll move to independent practice in reading, which differs in that this lets students take the wheel. Students apply what they've learned in class on their own without immediate teacher support. It promotes self-reliance and confidence in reading comprehension. The following are ways a teacher can use to integrate guided and independent reading inside the classroom. Reading rotations. Start with a guided group reading session, then allow students to progress to independent reading stations. The next strategy is peer reading. After a guided session, pair students to read together, offering a bridge between guided and independent reading. The next strategy is using reading journals. Post-guided practice asks students to reflect in journals, fostering independence in comprehension and reflection. In summary, while guided reading offers scaffolding and direct support, Independent practice empowers students to internalize and apply reading strategies independently. Here we are at our final descriptive statement for competency number 4. This one reads, the beginning teacher understands how to foster collaboration with families and with other professionals to promote all students' reading comprehension in grades 4 through 6. Let's jump straight into this. The importance of collaboration in reading comprehension. Remember, reading comprehension doesn't just occur with the four walls of a classroom. Collaboration between teachers, families, and other professionals is paramount in crafting an enriched, supportive reading environment for our students. Parents and guardians play a fundamental role in a child's reading journey. Educators, we have got to organize parent teacher meetings specifically focused on reading strategies. We also need to offer reading support, reading resources, and give workshops for families enhancing their confidence to support at home reading. Also, remember, encourage family reading nights or shared reading experiences to bolster reading comprehension skills. Besides family, other professionals can offer vital, insightful expertise. Think about co teaching or team teaching. Engage with other teachers or reading specialists to introduce diverse teaching strategies. And participate in professional development workshops focused on the latest reading comprehension techniques. Collaborate with librarians to curate book lists or set up reading clubs that cater to different reading levels and also interests. Collaborate effective efforts shine the brightest when they champion diversity. For your exam, make sure to look out for answers that incorporate multicultural texts to provide students with diverse perspectives. Also, use technology and ebooks where professionals and families can comment and discuss, creating an interactive reading experience. Rotate the genres from nonfiction to poetry, ensuring that students get exposure to all types of reading texts. In conclusion, collaboration is not just a pedagogical strategy, but an ecosystem that intertwines educators, families, and professionals. When this synergy is achieved, students in grades 4 through 6 are afforded an enriched reading comprehension experience.